Bills Mafia, you already know what time it is. Tonight on the Air Raid Hour, we are diving deep into the trenches, breaking down the defensive linemen and edge rushers in the 2026 NFL Draft that could be on the Buffalo Bills radar across all 3 days. From early round impact players to late round sleepers, we've got you covered. All that and more. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, everyone, to the Air Raid Hour, brought to you by Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at The Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on X at Tilt Money. And Dave, we've actually got some football news that we can talk about here before we dive into defensive linemen here tonight. The NFL owners meetings is about 20 minutes down the road from me here at the Biltmore in Phoenix, Arizona. And a couple of Bills nuggets dropped today. Let's start with maybe some roster construction things, some roster construction pieces as Brandon Beane met the media. He confirmed the Bills are still in talks with Brandon Cooks, and they'll likely circle back with him after the draft. So Brandon Cooks could still possibly be on the Bills' radar. You had Shaq Thompson saying on Twitter he's trying to get back with the Buffalo Bills based on what Shaq Thompson said at the end of the year, that he wants to get paid and what time of year it is in free agency. I'm thinking the Bills and Shaq Thompson probably want each other, but not at the price that Shaq Thompson wants. So we could have a reunion with Shaq Thompson at some point as well. So a couple of little tidbits there. The Bills picked up Dalton Kincaid's fifth-year option. There was a medical update on both Michael Hoyt and Dorian Strong. Michael Hoyt probably won't be ready until training camp. I honestly don't think he's going to be much of a factor, if at all, until mid-season. I think he's a legitimate PUP candidate. Dorian Strong, we still have no idea. The Bills say they are still in wait-and-see mode with his neck injury. He may never play football again, unfortunately. And Joe Brady broke the news that Josh Allen couldn't even walk late last season and was still somehow playing at the level he was playing on the football field on Sundays, but he should be back for OTAs as well. AJ Epenesa failed a physical with the Browns. He is once again a free agent. Some people are speculating he could come back to Buffalo on the cheap and add to our edge rusher depth. So a number of different pieces of news coming out today. Anything stick out to you in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, the Michael Hoyt news at this stage in the offseason is obviously optimistic, I would say. I think, we talked about this in a similar vein as we talked about Von Miller when he was coming back from that ACL injury. If you remember, he was going to be ready for training camp, blah, blah, blah. And then we realized very quickly after training camp started that was kind of more of an optimistic viewpoint. So I agree with you. I think Michael Hoyt's a big wait and see. Even if he is ready by training camp, you can't imagine that he's going to be doing much in the way of full practices or things of that nature. Maybe he's on the side on the bike or whatever the case may be. But my expectations for him is that he won't really contribute meaningfully until the second half of the season. And to me, that's still a big win for the Bills if you can get a good, solid Michael Hoyt by the second half. Dorian Strong, I mean, look, it's wait and see. Like we said, it's really unfortunate because the Bills could really use that spot on their roster right now to be filled by Dorian Strong. Mm-hmm. It just feels like everyone's rooting for him, obviously, from his health, and that's the most important thing. But it does stink a bit from the football perspective. As far as AJ Epenesa, as Bills Are Electric brings up there, hoping for the best for him, not thinking Beane's going to bring him back. Wonder what his fit may be right on this defense. Is he if he were to come back, he's gone up and down in weight multiple times over his tenure with the Bills. He really kind of settled in as more of that 4-3 edge rusher for the Bills. So I wonder if he's even really much of a fit in this Bills scheme anyway. So Nothing really too crazy. The Brandon Cooks comments don't surprise me. That seems pretty reasonable with how he finished the season with the Bills. But again, they've made some moves at that position. Obviously, traded for DJ Moore. I think they want to give Keon Coleman a chance to show what he can do. Josh Palmer back from injury, like probably a low priority for them, and they have to see how the draft plays out. But I could see a situation where if the Bills don't address wide receiver at all in the draft, that maybe in the summer they bring Brandon Cooks in for training camp.
Yeah, the Bills seem like they're keeping their options open. Both Joe Brady and Brandon Beane had high praise, or have had in the last couple of days, high praise for DJ Moore. Joe Brady says his game has not fallen off watching his film from last year, from what he had in Carolina and what he had success with in Carolina when he was under Joe Brady. So Joe Brady is very high on the potential of DJ Moore in this offense. It seems like DJ Moore, this is the place he wanted to be based on Ben Johnson's comments today. He wanted to go back to Joe Brady. He wanted to play with Josh Allen. This is just a really good fit for him. And then Brandon Beane, even, again, he says this a lot, and I'm sure he means it, but he says that he tried to get DJ Moore at the trade deadline. And that was just the Bears weren't willing to do, as they were competing for a playoff. And then obviously they had sort of Super Bowl aspirations as that season progressed. And the way their season went. So Brandon Beane said they knew of our interest, so they circled back at the combine, and that's how the deal came about. So the Bills have a very, very high expectations, it appears, for DJ Moore. Again, I think most people would tell you he is a low-end wide receiver one. Maybe the Buffalo Bills have higher aspirations than that, or maybe the Buffalo Bills just feel like, hey, all we need is a lower-end wide receiver one. We don't need that like legit 1A X receiver. DJ Moore will do just fine.
Yeah, and I think like all you really need to do is kind of go back and look at how the Bills were on offense last year, right? There were frustrating times, sure. But in the reality is like you're really running back the same group. You have Khalil Shakir coming back. Obviously, you hope that Josh Palmer's healthier, and he didn't really contribute in a truly meaningful way last year, right? And so between those two guys, and then now you give Keon Coleman maybe another chance, you just throw DJ Moore into that mix, and you're really in a much better position than you were last year at the position, no matter how you think about what the Bills paid to get DJ Moore in the terms of the draft compensation and the trade. That room is still significantly better, at least on paper right now, than it was at this time a year ago.
All right, on to tonight's main topic, and that is the defensive line. The Buffalo Bills are looking to make over their defensive line, and it looks like they'll be doing it via the draft, because they really have not, outside of Bradley Chubb, who's an edge rusher, made very many moves. You have obviously Ed Oliver along that defensive line, Deion Walker along that defensive line, TJ Sanders, Dwayne Carter. Those are some of the notable names. Zion Logue, Fedarian Mathis. Then you look at the edge rushers, Bradley Chubb, Gregory Rousseau. You have Michael Hoyt as sort of a sandbacker. You have Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon. So this is definitely a position group I think the Buffalo Bills are going to add to. There's already rumors circulating, and who knows what rumor is true and what rumor is false this time of year, that the Buffalo Bills are looking closely at pass rushers in this draft. So it'll be really interesting to see where they go. I know me and you personally, I believe, I don't want to speak too much for you, so I'll give you a chance to speak in a moment, believe that maybe interior defensive line, or the guys who are along that defensive front in an odd man front, might be a little bit more of a need than edge rusher, even though edge rusher and edge rusher depth is needed for the Buffalo Bills. And that's sort of our goal tonight, is to talk about the defensive line and the edge rush prospects in this year's draft class.
Yeah, and I would say at the top of the depth chart, right? And you look at the top of the depth chart, the starting edge rushers obviously appear to be set with Chubb and Rousseau. There isn't a ton of experienced depth there right now. Obviously, Epenesa is out of the building. You've got guys like Javon Solomon, who have shown some flashes in the past. Is he going to fit as kind of more of a stand-up guy on the outside? What about Landon Jackson? Is he going to kind of fit more as like a 4-eye 5 tech in this defense, or is he going to be really an outside edge rushing type of player? We don't know. But then on the interior, I think there's question marks on where guys will slot in, right? You have bodies there. So I don't think like the depth maybe is a little better in the interior, but I don't think the top end is quite as good as maybe you do on the edges with Rousseau and Chubb. So I think as a need, and whether or not you know, get super excited about interior defensive linemen, there are question marks on kind of where guys will slot in. Ed Oliver presumably will land one side at the 4i. You know, people are kind of penciling in Deon Walker as the starting nose tackle right now. We don't know if that's necessarily the best fit for him. Bills did nothing in free agency really to address this position. We saw guys like John Franklin Myers get huge money and others. So they really haven't addressed this position at all. And you wonder about guys like Dwayne Carter and their fits. Where does a guy like TJ Sanders fit into this whole equation? So to me, it's a lot of question of where guys are going to fit. But I do think that when you look at the change here, there is some need, especially right up the middle in that defense. I don't think you can put that all on Deon Walker. And that might not even necessarily be his most natural position anyway in this front.
So let's start with some names here and let's start talking prospects this evening. And here's how this is going to work tonight. We're going to start with defensive line, right? This is not edge rusher. We're going to save edge rusher for second. This could be guys who could be 4Is, guys who could be 5 techs, guys who could be nose tackles. That's who we're going to talk about first, guys along the defensive line. And in order to sort of flow a little bit more smoothly than we have the past couple of weeks, Dave and I have decided on the following format, right? We're just going to go back and forth 10 times. He's going to start for the first round here with IDLs, and then I'm going to go second. And essentially, he's going to state like his favorite defensive tackle prospect fit for the Bills. Then I'll go and I'll state my second or my favorite based on what he picked. And by the time we're done going back and forth, kind of like a snake draft style here of IDLs, we'll have 20 prospects that we'll had a conversation on. So hopefully that'll get us through and have a little bit better of a flow to it this evening. And we're going to do the same thing for edge rushers afterwards. So Dave, the floor is yours. Who is the number one interior defensive lineman? Because we both talked before the show. We don't think there's any IDLs that are guaranteed to go off the board before the Bills pick at 26. So it's not like when we get to edge where it's like, we're going to skip David Bailey and Ruben Beane. We're not skipping anybody here for IDL. Who would be your number one pick if all IDLs were on the board at pick 26?
Yeah, it's tough because I kind of narrow this down to 2 guys. And so, you know, look, I'll be honest with you, since I'm picking first, I narrowed it down to Caleb Banks and I narrowed it down to Caden McDonald. Those were the 2 guys that I kind of had on my short list. And Caleb Banks, very, very intriguing as a physically inspiring athlete, but I'm going to go with Caden McDonald here with my first pick at the interior. 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks last year, dramatically improved. I believe from 24 to 2025 season in his run defense. He is a natural run defender. He was the number 1 graded run defender per PFF of all interior defensive linemen last year. He had the number 1 stop percentage of all interior defensive linemen in the class with at least 150 run defense snaps and only a 3.3 missed tackle rate percentage. He would be very tempting for me at pick 26 if the Bills didn't and have not addressed the positions thus far in free agency. I think he's an ideal fit as a nose, 0 or 1 tech in this Bills front. And what I believe the Bills' most pressing need is on that interior right now is someone that can come in and absolutely stop the run. You think about the Denver Broncos last year and how good Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper were, and that's great. But they had Zach Allen. They had John Franklin Myers stopping the run on that defensive line. And they had guys, they were still one of the better run defenses as well. So for me, I'm going Caden McDonald first here.
Yeah, that's a great pick. And if I was going first, that would have been my first overall pick here. To me, I mean, it's just you're going to get run game production from him. He's immediately going to make your defense better at stopping the run. That's number 1. And there's a word that Anthony Prohaska uses all the time, force multiplier, right? Just this player's presence on the field is going to make other people better. Caden McDonald is a force multiplier. Because he is on the field, Terrell Bernard will be better. Dorian Williams will be better. Gregory Rousseau will be better. Ed Oliver will be better. Bradley Chubb will be better. These players will be better because Caden McDonald is on the field with him, much like a lot of those Ohio State defenders were a lot better because Caden McDonald was on the field because of them. I was taking
they were
some
the
notes.
number one defense in the country. I mean, I know they're Ohio State, but
they were coached by an NFL guy and Matt Patricia. Whatever problems you have with Matt Patricia, because he's a freaking weirdo, the man knows how to run a defense, and he ran a very good defense there at Ohio State. I was jotting some notes down while you were kind of going through some of the stats. So you might have already said these things, but I think it bears repeating if you did. He was fourth amongst defensive tackles last season in college football with 60 tackles. He was first in 16 tackles for losses for no gain. And he was first with 30 run stops, right? So this is a very good player, and he's got range to be more than a traditional nose tackle. So somebody said Chris Jones 2.0 potentially. Yes, he's got that pass rush potential to his game as well, and he could be even better in the pros than he was at college. So I think that's a really good pick there with Caden McDonald. I'm not going Caleb Banks here with my second pick. It's funny. I was having a conversation today with Bruce Nolan. We were texting back and forth about some prospects, and we were talking about DTs, and I talked about one of my favorite DTs, the one I'm about to pick here, Christian Miller, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. And he's like, yeah, it makes sense, right? Jim Leonhard, Wisconsin, Keanu Benton, a lot of maybe comps for Christian Miller to Keanu Benton, who we were a big fan of on this podcast years ago when he was coming out in the draft. So I guess I have a type because I loved Keanu Benton all those years ago. And now I love Christian Miller. And I think he's a defensive tackle who is squarely in play at pick 26. I do not think it would be a reach at all if the Buffalo Bills took him at 26. 6'3", 321. He's got 33-inch arms. He's got big 10-inch hands. He's a stout nose tackle with good read and react skills and body control. He could take on doubles. So you have a stout run defender. I'm going to use that word, force multiplier again. He's going to make other people around him better because of the dirty work that he does. I think he's alignment versatile. I think he can be a nose tackle, or he could even play 5-tech or 4-eye. You can move him along that defensive front. He had 19 pressures in both 2024 and 2025. So I think he does have an ability to be a better pass rusher in the pros than he was in college. Jordan Reed even says he believes Georgia's scheme as a pass rusher held him back a little bit. So I think Christian Miller is another guy who could potentially be a much better pro than he was a college player. And that is why he's going to be my number one pick here in our little round robin here at interior defensive line.
I like it. And I mean, I'm kind of guess getting the best of both worlds now here, because I went with kind of like the cleanest, I would say, prospect in Caden McDonald. Now I'll go for the upside guy that I think, it kind of screams Brandon Beane to me, the way he's drafted in the past. It kind of reminds me of a little bit, not the same position, but a little bit of the Gregory Rousseau type of player. Not as much, not in the type of experience, because Rousseau was less experienced, but the guy with like the upside, the huge amount of length, the huge amount of ceiling, and that is Caleb Banks at 6'6", 327, over 10-inch hands, 35-inch arms, and over 85-inch wingspan. He is one of the most physically awe-inspiring interior linemen of this class. Rare size, explosive first step, athleticism, the 9.86 RAS score. He could be a difference maker at the next level. The question is he going to be really the best fit as a nose tackle in the 3-4 scheme? There is a little bit of similarity here to him and Deon Walker, but I think with his pedigree and his athleticism and his ceiling, I think with the right coaching staff, Caleb Banks could be one of the best interior defensive linemen in the class. The reason I didn't put him above Caden McDonald was just because of the slight concern of a little bit of redundancy with Deon Walker, but the guy is so uber talented that I'm willing to take the chance on him. So I'll go Caleb Banks next.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Caleb Banks, just like he's literally Deon Walker almost to a T, right? 6'6", 327 pounds. He's got that 85-inch wingspan, those 35-inch arms. He is the dancing bear of this class, like Deon Walker was the dancing bear of the last class, like right down to the injuries, because Deon Walker had the back injury last year. Everyone was worried about Deon Walker and his back. everyone's worried about Caleb Banks and his reoccurring foot injury that limited him to 3 games in 2025. So you have the injury concerns, right? You have that big 327-pound frame, and he's got a foot injury, just like Deion Walker, that huge frame and a back injury. So to me, if all is well and he is healthy and the Buffalo Bills pull the trigger on a Caleb Banks at 26, cool. Make it work. That should be really fun, playing those two guys off of each other and then throwing Ed Oliver into the mix as well. I know some people might say it's redundant with Deion Walker, but you can't have too many of those big guys up front. So his 20% win rate on true pass sets in 2024, yes, give me some more of that, please. Right? Those guys who are able to push the pocket from the interior, get to the quarterback, right? Power through double teams, things of that nature. So big fan of Caleb Banks and that pick that you have there. My next pick, I have other players who are higher in my list of players, but there's a couple of players that I have ranked higher than this player that I think you're not going to touch. So I'm taking a chance here, and I'm going to take Grayson Holton out of Oklahoma with my next pick. Now, this is a guy where I really love his game. He had a big Senior Bowl week. I was not really looking at him for the Buffalo Bills because of his size profile. 6'2", 293 pounds, 31-inch arms, which is 4th percentile, right? But every other area, he really had success at the combine. He 95th percentile 40, 98th percentile vertical jump, 92nd percentile broad jump. This is a quick and explosive athlete in Grayson Holton. 8.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. He was second in the pressure rate among SEC defensive tackles with 30. This is a guy who gives me Kobe Turner vibes. And it just so happens the Buffalo Bills have not just met with him, but had a private workout or a private meeting, something more than just like a combine meeting with Grayson Holton, who talked about how the Bills envision him as a guy they can move across the defensive line and a guy that they can play at the 4-eye. So to me, Grayson Holton is squarely in play for the Buffalo Bills, whether it be at 26 or in more than likely a trade back scenario. I have a hard time believing, with all the buzz around him and the Senior Bowl that he had and the combine that he had, that he slips all the way to the Buffalo Bills at 91. But this is a guy that has elite speed for a defensive tackle. He's got really good get off quickness. He's got a pass rush arsenal, right? He's got a relentless motor. He's got a low center of gravity. Like, he is someone who's going to collapse pockets. He is someone who's going to penetrate. He is someone who's going to wreak havoc on opposing teams' offensive lines, and he's going to really make them work. So do I think he's redundant with Ed Oliver? Yes. Do I think you can have too many of these types of players? No. And the Buffalo Bills have clearly shown an interest in this type of player by meeting with him. So I'm going to put Grayson Holton as my second pick here at defensive tackle.
Yeah, I like Holton. I wasn't sure where he would go. 3rd best run defender per PFF last year of all interior defensive linemen.
RIP PFF.
Yeah, I know. 5th highest defensive grade of all interior defensive linemen in the class with at least 300 snaps. Nice pick there. I'm going to go a little maybe sideways a bit here because I know, not doing this to snake you, but man, I like this guy. And my theme for kind of a lot of my picks tonight are going to be run stuffing specialists. I will mix in a few others here and there, but I'm going with the Godfather here, Dante Corleone, with my next pick. 6'1", 340 pounds. So you love that kind of like low center of gravity leverage he's got. The arm length isn't elite at 31 inches, but man, this guy has elite strength and power. He is going to come in and be a true nose tackle, 0 or 1 tech for you in this defense, whether he shades right on the center or a little off. He can do either one. All the scouting reports on him do project that he can fit as a true nose tackle in a 3-4 front that prioritizes run defense and gap control. So it sounds to me a lot like what the Bills are trying to do in this new scheme. One of the most physically imposing linemen in this class, pairs strength and explosive burst. It's not going to give you a ton pass rush, but that's not what you're drafting him for. You're drafting him for his run defense, and he's one of the better run defenders in this class. So give me Dante Corleone here with my next pick.
And he's a player, as much as I love Dante Corleone, I'm going to walk you through some of the negatives here just because I think he's a guy who will be there at 91 and could possibly be there into the 4th round for a couple of reasons. You just mentioned the lack of pass rush, right?
Yep.
Limited pass rush, 10.5 win rate on true pass rush sets, just 8 pressures this past season. He lacks ideal length, not so much the height, but the 31-inch arms is 10th percentile. He had a blood clot issue in his lungs prior to the start of 2024. So medically, there could be some issues with him. He turns 24 in August as well. And I'm not going to lie, he was better earlier in his career. Like as a sophomore, you thought Dante Corleone was really going to be something. And he still might really be something. But the buzz around him his sophomore year was a lot bigger than the buzz around him his senior year. So I think he's a guy that could drift into the middle rounds of this draft and could really fill a hole as a 2-down player for the Buffalo Bills. Again, he is just a guy who is going to absorb double teams. He's got good anchor strength. He's got good gap discipline. He's got good natural leverage, especially being so low at 6 foot. He's going to make other people around him better and instantly make us better at stopping the run. So I'm a big fan of your pick there in Dante Corleone. I'm going to write him down here so I know not to pick him because you picked him. And now I'm kind of curious because you've kind of gone off my board. You've kind of given me a tell as to the kind of players that you're looking for. Oh, so there's a guy I have really high up on my board that I just think maybe you're not going to mention at all. So I might save this next guy. I might save this next. I'm going to save him one more time, and then I will use him if you don't take him, just because it'd be disrespectful to drop him anymore. So I'm not going to go with the player I want to take next. I'm going to go Lee Hunter from Texas Tech next. Yeah. So I'm going to go with a guy who I originally thought could be in play at 26. Maybe he still could be in play at 26, but I think this is still a top 40, 50 guy in this class. I maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with a trade back for Lee Hunter, but this is a guy who's 6'3". He's 318 pounds. He's very top heavy though, right? At the combine, he showed why he's not really just like this lower body strength type of player. He had a 21-inch vertical, right? That's first percentile. He had an 18th percentile broad, but you know from watching the tape that is not Lee Hunter's game. What you're getting from Lee Hunter is a guy who has played over 500 snaps in 3 straight seasons as a nose tackle at 6'3", 318 pounds. So you know you're going to get a guy who's going to be on the field. He's got bull rush power. He plays with a violent nature. He's got great effort for a big man. He had a 17.5 win rate on true pass rush sets. So this is a nose tackle who can legitimately rush the passer and get after the quarterback and collapse pockets. He's got an 11.9% stop rate, which is amongst the highest of the class. So you know he's good against the run. He's really effective using his hands. He is a nose tackle who's got anchor power, low pad level, good gap awareness, and heavy hands, right? He is a guy who's going to anchor the middle of that defensive line for you. I think when you look at some of the weaknesses, obviously, like I said, a little top heavy, right? Doesn't have the lower body juice. And maybe he lacks that elite explosiveness off the snap that maybe you're looking for from a first round defensive lineman, but still a really, really good, really, really effective player. Lee Hunter is a top 40 guy in my book. And I'm a really big fan of nose tackles who can pass rush. Yes. Sign me up for that any day of the week.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good pick. He would have been my next one had you not taken him. So nice one there. My next pick, I'm gonna go towards the 4i 5 tech route.
Oh no, maybe I shouldn't have waited.
I don't know. I honestly don't know who you're talking about. So I'm just going with this guy, and I was debating between 2 guys, but I'm going with Keldrick Falk from Auburn.
That was the guy I was gonna go with.
I got to round out my list a little bit here. So obviously big physical frame, run stuffing traits. I think he's going to fit. He would fit as a defensive end, 3-4 defensive end, 4i 5 tech in this Bills scheme at 6'5", 276. Really nice wingspan, 82 3/4 inch wingspan. He'll give you some upside as a base end in the 3-4 front, and can he's a guy that can really, even though he has like a little bit of smaller hands. I think that his arm length and his wingspan will make up for that. And to me, he's a guy that when you think about who's going to play like maybe the opposite side of, Ed Oliver, if you end up getting one of those run stuffing nose tackles, a guy like Keldrick Falk could very nicely fit sort of on the other side in that starting 3-man front. Ed Oliver on one side, whether it's Deion Walker or someone else they put in the middle, and then a guy like Keldrick Falk on the outside. He really kind of gives me who was it that the Patriots drafted a few years ago that we liked? Was it Keon White? Was that his name?
Yes, from Georgia Tech.
Yes, from Georgia Tech.
He's in San Francisco now, I think.
Yeah, very, very Keon White vibes to me for Keldrick Falk. So I like him especially as a fit, as a 4-eye in this defense. So gonna round out my list a little bit here and go with him.
Keldrick Falk looks a lot better when you understand he is not an edge rusher, right? Like
Correct.
It's the guy who has a pass rush win rate in his final season of 11.6%. The average first round pick since 2015 for an edge rusher is 17.3%. So he's well below sort of that threshold. But when you look at him, right, very good run defender. First and foremost, that's kind of what we're looking for a little bit. Utilizes his length really well, those 34 plus inch arms. He's got the frame to add on another 10, 15, 20 pounds. He's really powerful. He's got alignment versatility, as you mentioned. He could play 5-tech, 4-eye. If we go to an even front, he could play 3-tech. He had just an 8.5% missed tackle rate for his career. He doesn't turn 21 until September, right?
Yep.
These are kind of sometimes he's gone away from this a little bit, but very early on, these were kind of the guys that Brandon Beane was taking swings on, guys like Gregory Rousseau, et cetera. Some of these younger guys who a year prior were seen as like, oh, you're doing your 2026 mock draft the day after the 2025 the 25 draft. Oh, Kendrick Falk is in your top 5. Now you're getting him at 26, right? Because a year has passed. We realize he's not an edge rusher. He doesn't have that pass rush versatility we thought he would have. Like that's kind of like the vibe that you get from Brandon Beane is he likes to sort of go out and those are some of the guys. Kyrie Elam was the same way. Like you did the 2023 or the 2022 mock draft after the 2021 draft. Kyrie Elam was a first round pick.
Yeah.
Right? Gregory Rousseau, like all these guys that he seems to take. So Deion Walker, who we got in the 4th round. So yeah, I like that pick in Keldrick Falk. And that will lead me to sort of pivot here. I'm going to go get my big fat dude here, and I'm going to go with Big Citrus.
Yes, there he is.
Dominique Orange out of Iowa State. 6'2", 322 pounds. He's got 33-inch arms. He's got 10-inch mitts. He's a true nose tackle with a little bit of pass rush juice. I think he's good at eating space on the interior, absorbing double teams. I think he's got powerful hands. He's strong at the point of attack. Solid quickness for his size. He's played almost 1,600 snaps in his career. I haven't seen his pro day numbers. I know he didn't work out at the combine, but he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list because he was bench pressing 450 pounds. So that is something to keep in mind. A big, strong, powerful dude. Again, I think he'll make everyone else around him. He'll make Ed Oliver better. He'll make TJ Sanders better. He'll make Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Gregory Rousseau, Bradley Chubb. He'll make them better, right? So some of the issues that could knock Big Citrus to 91, he has a little bit of pass rush juice, but he's more of a nose tackle. They traditionally fall. He's got some arm length questions at 33 inches. Not the worst in the world, but not the best in the world. 25% missed tackle rate in 2025. Not great. You got to clean that up a little bit, right? And he's only got 1 career sack, right? So while he flashes some pass rush potential, you're not seeing the production there that maybe would warrant an earlier pick. So I think sitting at 91, a guy like Big Citrus, if we do not address nose tackle early with a defense tackle in the first round or a trade back, Big Citrus at 91 or even 126 is a really good option for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to go with who someone just mentioned in the chat as my next pick. And I'm going to, don't talk about him a lot, but I'm going Peter Woods here. He just turned 21 from Clemson. 6'2", 298, 31-inch arms, 76-inch wingspan. Clemson plays that 4-3 front. Like, so don't hate me for this, but I think he could fill in as a 3-4 end. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be playing any nose tackle necessarily, but I do think he can play as a 3-4, 4-eye, 5 tech. Again, you talk about a guy you wanted in John Franklin Myers, who was 290, 295. Peter Woods, 298, right? Comes in and has been a little bit, all over the board. Like back in the winter time, PFF had Peter Woods as their 14th overall prospect. Jordan Reed in ESPN in February had him as his 15th overall prospect. Back in February, Daniel Jeremiah had Peter Woods as his 34th overall prospect. So, he is a guy that can come in and he's got potential. He's got some ceiling as he just turned 21, and he can be a powerful and explosive type of player for you as an edge setting type of player in a 3-4. He's got some pretty decent lateral quickness on him. So he's not going to be, he's a guy that I think can be a little versatile for you too, as well. Like he can maybe give you a little bit of pass rush from the inside on pass rushing downs as well. So to me, I like Peter Woods. I don't think we've really talked about him a lot leading up to this process.
No,
I don't
100%.
think, he's just kind of out there, but to me, he's kind of a rock solid type of player who I wouldn't mind. I don't know where he ends up going in this draft, but I like Peter Woods, and I think he can fit at the end.
I think a lot of these Clemson players, you're going to get at a discount this year because Clemson struggled. But I think a lot of these Clemson players are better than what that coaching staff sort of put out there and down there in Clemson. I think people who know the show know I'm not the biggest fan of Debo in the world, but or Dabo, excuse me. But Peter Woods, they did some weird things with his weight, like fluctuations over the last couple of years. He went from like a bigger, thicker guy to a real like juiced up, like sort of jacked, like hard bodied athlete. So he had that sort of body transformation. He struggled a little bit from that. I don't like the length with his 76-inch wingspan, his 31-inch arms, his 9-inch hands. Like I'm not a big fan of the length, but that being said, he's a darn good football player. He's definitely somewhere, I think, in that 25 to 50 range. I think he's more of a probably 4-eye, 5 tech in your defense. I don't think you're going to get very many, if at all, nose tackle snaps out of him. That's why it says like he's one of those names where I was trying to think of like how I wanted to frame my thoughts and feelings on draft picks this year. Like, and to me, I'm either going to love a pick, I'm either going to hate a pick, or I'm just going to be indifferent. Like I get it, but I don't like it. And I think Peter Woods falls into that indifferent category for me personally, just not as a prospect, but just as a fit with the Bills. Like to me, I'm indifferent. Like if they do it, I get it. He's a good prospect, but I feel the same way about Denzel Boston at wide receiver. But just if it were me, I wouldn't do it. But that's why I'm not an NFL general manager, right? So I like Peter Woods. I like that pick. Definitely, like if you were ranking true defensive tackles, regardless of team, irregardless of team, he's definitely higher than where we just took him. So you got great value there in Peter Woods. I'm going to go here with my next pick with another big, beefy nose tackle. And this is a guy who you are drafting for his measurements. And that is Darrell Jackson Jr. out of Florida State. 6'5", 315 pounds. He's got 86-inch wingspan, which is 99th percentile. He's got 34, almost 35-inch arms, 92nd percentile, and 11-inch mitts, right? You are drafting this guy because of his size profile. Almost 1,700 career snaps played for Darrell Jackson Jr. He had a really nice Shrine Week, so much so that it led to an invite to the Senior Bowl on top of the Shrine Bowl. I think he shows good gap control, good discipline, good power at the point of attack. He's a really good run defender, just a 7.7 missed tackle rate in 2025, 8.9 stop rate in 2025. If Florida State was better, maybe Darrell Jackson is going higher in this draft because he would flash a little bit more on tape. I don't think he was surrounded with a lot this year at Florida State with the struggles that they have. But at the same time, if you do look at him, the reason why he'd be in play more at 91 or 126 than maybe his size would suggest earlier on the draft, limited pass rush arsenal, inconsistent burst off the snap. He's kind of high cut a little bit, so you worry about that. I mean, just an 8.4 win rate on true pass rush sets. But it was 21%. Like I said, Florida State struggled this year. It was 21% in 2024. So there is some pass rush juice in there from Darrell Jackson Jr. So I think that size profile could get him drafted earlier. Don't get me wrong. This could be like a second round, early third round guy. But if he's still there at 91, a guy like Darrell Jackson Jr., I think makes a lot of sense for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. I mean, just the ceiling potential alone there, right, is something that's going to get a lot of teams' attention with those, that wingspan's insane for Darrell Jackson Jr. I mean, they said what was like a 7.5-inch wingspan or something crazy like that. So, or 7 feet, over 7 foot wingspan.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, it's just nuts. So I like that pick out. For me, it was between Peter Woods and Jackson. So I'm glad you went with him next. I'm going to go back to kind of where I started here tonight with a run stuffing type of prospect from a blue chip program. So if you go Caden McDonald with your first pick and then kind of work your way down the board and kind of find like a consolation prize if you miss out on Caden McDonald, and the guy who I think is a solid, if not unspectacular prospect. And I'm going to go with Tim Keenan III from Bama here at 6'1", 327. The hand size is small, so it does concern you. Arm length is short, but the guy does hold up in run support, and he obviously played at Bama where he did a good job playing the interior there. Not the flashiest guy, but really good anchor strength and run stopping ability. Got attention during the week of Senior Bowl practices. There were some good reports on him and kind of how Tim Keenan held up consistently, getting pressure at the line of scrimmage during those Senior Bowl practices. So as a guy who I think can come in and be a nose tackle type of depth piece, I wouldn't say he's necessarily going to come in and be your starting nose tackle or 0 or 1 tech. I think he can come in and be a depth piece there, where right now we are really questioning where guys fit on this defensive line for TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, whatever. I don't think there would be any questions about where Tim Keenan would fit. He'd be a backup nose tackle for you. And I think he'd be a solid sort of rotational run defender for you.
Yeah, solid 2-down player. I'm a little lower on Tim Keenan because I think he's just like a true 2-down player. I wouldn't. We have what, 1 4th-round pick and then 2 5ths?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just.
I don't think I touched. I'm reading a comment here from Jay Kellen Trail, who says I take him in the 4th
round. I take him in the 4th round.
I'm a little lower. I would say 5th. I would say, but I'd get it in the 4th, but I don't think I'd go 5th. Noah Sheldon comes in and says James Thompson Jr. from Illinois. Maybe he's on your list, but I know I'm not going to have him on my list, but I love James Thompson Jr. So my big fault this year was started with combine guys. So I had James Thompson Jr. as a guy who flashed from the Shrine Bowl. I had all these notes on James Thompson Jr., and then I never went back for my unofficial notes and put them onto my official note sheet, which I have in front of me here. So James Thompson Jr. did not make my list, but I certainly do need to add him because he flashed at the Shrine Bowl. He's got a really good frame at 6'5", 300+ pounds. Big fan of James Thompson Jr. from Illinois. I think he'd be a good 5 tech fit for the Buffalo Bills. So that's a good one. Noah Sheldon, I don't know if you had him on your list. Maybe you do. And
maybe I'll throw him in at the end
in a little bit. But I'm gonna zag here a little bit. This will be the second sort of smaller prospect that I've taken, but I think it's okay because I've surrounded these 2 smaller guys with some big beef. I'm gonna go with Zane Durant out of Penn State. I'm a big fan of Zane Durant. I've always been a big fan of Zane Durant. Obviously, Penn State had a down year this year, so I think his name recognition isn't as high as it normally would be, but he was a big combine winner, a big time combine winner. Obviously 6'2", 290. So he's a 4-eye, but again, the Buffalo Bills have shown an interest in that with Grayson Halton. 31-inch arms, 10th percentile. That's not great, but 88th percentile hand size at 10+ inches, 93rd percentile 10-yard split, 98th percentile 40 at 4.75 at 290 pounds, 91st percentile vertical, 85th percentile broad. This is an explosive athlete. He's an Iron Man, right? 685 snaps played in 2024 and another 476 in 2025. So he's on the field a ton. He's got quickness off the snap. He creates havoc. He's got 71 career pressures. He had 4 sacks in 2025. He improved his missed tackle rate from 2024 to 2025 down to just 7.7%, right? He is considered undersized. I get that. So he is a 4i. He does have trouble disengaging from blocks at times because of that size, but I get some Geno Atkins vibes from Zane Durant. So I really like him as a player. And again, if the Buffalo Bills are showing interest in this style of player, even though I think it's a little redundant with TJ Sanders and Ed Oliver, Zane Durant goes on my list because the Bills have clearly shown an interest in that type of player. So big fan of Zane Durant. Chris Janke is too. So there we go. I got Chris's support.
There you go. Look, I mean, I kind of early in the show, I was like, hey, you know, Caleb Banks, he's kind of like Deion Walker. Now this next guy is truly in my mind, like could be the Deion Walker of this draft. And maybe gets picked around that same time too, 4th, 5th round. Not saying he's going to be necessarily an early down guy, but Xavier Harris from Ole Miss, 6'8", 330 pounds, 10-inch hands, almost 35-inch arms. He's massive, right? And he's got untapped potential. He could play really all over the line if you're the Bills, right? He could play a little bit of nose tackle. He could probably come in and play a little 4i5 tech for you. I think he's a guy that, like, you look at his ceiling, his athletic ability, and you say, like, with the right coaching, because he does need some refinement, needs to use better hand work, needs to be better. Some of his technique needs to be better, but they don't make the guys are just not that big and that athletic. So to me, not as polished, I don't think, as a Deion Walker coming out, but does have a lot of experience, a lot of game experience, and you know, a guy that I would just be willing in like, let's say the 5th round, take a chance on if you already have maybe addressed this position earlier in the draft and you want to take a guy with some upside. I'll go with Xavier Harris from Ole Miss.
Yeah, the big thing with Xavier Harris is he's got to clear your off-field stuff, right? So like we don't know anything about like these players' backgrounds. We're not doing the digging that these NFL general managers. We don't have those type of resources, right? So we're just talking about the football player here in Xavier Harris, the dancing bear, the powerful hands, the huge arm length, the huge wingspan, right? That's what we're talking about. But he does have domestic violence charges. He's got some other charges in his past that are very, very concerning to a lot of people. There are probably going to be a number of teams who won't have him on their boards. So if you're thinking to yourself, why have I never heard of this guy until just now? That is probably one of those reasons you haven't heard of Xavier Harris yet. But a lot of the similar issues that you had with Deion Walker, right? Poor pad level too often. He has 16.1 career missed tackle rate. Not a lot of pass rush production for a guy who is a dancing bear too, 5.5 career sacks, but 3 in 2025. So it's on the uptick. So yeah, dancing bear there in Xavier Harris. I like that upside pick as we get later on into this draft here. I'm going to go the exact opposite of you here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go from the high upside dancing bear of Xavier Harris to, and people said I hate Clemson. I don't hate Clemson, right? I just hate Dabo Swinney. So I'm going with DeMonte Capehart, who is not like sort of your traditional type of like defensive tackle. To me, he's very much an odd front 5 tech. So I'm going with DeMonte Capehart from Clemson, 6'4", 313, 33 plus inch arms, 10 plus inch hands. He had a good 93rd percentile 40, 91st percentile vertical. This is a guy who had a really good Shrine Week. He's got strong hands. He's a physical run stuffer. He had 9.97 RAS score, and he did most of the drills. He didn't skip out on a lot of the drills. He had 0 missed tackles in 2024. He's got really good anchor strength against double teams. He had an 8.6% stop rate in 2025. Really good with his gap integrity. So to me, if you're looking to clean up your run defense, a guy like DeMonte Capehart is a guy that you draft in the middle rounds. Now, why is he not going sooner? Limited pass rush arsenal and pass rush plan. Like, he's just not a pass rusher. 6-year senior, right? 6.6 win rate on true pass sets, 3 career sacks. Like, It's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be flashy with DeMonte Capehart. Those guys tend to not go high in the draft. And who knows, based on like what we're hearing from the Buffalo Bills, maybe they're not looking for that kind of boring type of defensive lineman. They're looking for those penetrators and those quicker guys. So who knows if a guy like DeMonte Capehart is even on the Bills board. I'm a big fan of these types of players. I love hitting these doubles in the middle rounds. And I think DeMonte Capehart is an easy double. So I'm going with him here with my next pick.
All right. Well, I'm going with next pick for me. We're going small school here with this next pick, and I'm going with Caleb Proctor from Southeastern Louisiana. This guy had a 90.4 pass rush grade from the defensive interior last year. That would have put him third highest among defensive linemen in FBS and FCS last year, with those with at least 500 defensive snaps. Caleb Proctor is 6'2", 291. So I think he's going to end up playing a 3-4, 4-eye, 5-tech for the Bills. 9.13 RAS. Standout defensive player 2025, Southland Conference Player of the Year, which is rare for a defensive lineman. So we got an interior defensive lineman winning Southland Conference Player of the Year. Anchored one of the best defenses in FCS. 9 sacks. Was recognized as one of the best interior defensive linemen in FCS. Received multiple postseason honors. All-American selection by several outlets, including second team by the AP, and was also named a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award given to the top defensive player in college football in the FCS. So to me, Caleb Proctor, if you're looking for kind of like diamonds in the rough type of player, like to me, he fits the bill there. And I think he can fit. I think he could fit on the Bills. It's a nice fit, in my opinion, because he played the interior at Southeastern Louisiana, could slide out, play a little bit of the defensive end there, use some of that pass rush ability he has, and then also he's pretty decent against the run as well. So give me Caleb Proctor, my next pick.
Big Shrine Week for Caleb Proctor. He was a name that was all over social media during Shrine Week. He had a big week down there in Frisco. Again, if the Bills are truly looking for gap shooters, this is a gap shooter type of guy. Now he was listed at 275, but then waiting at the combine at 291, which is like what you want to see from that sort of like 4-eye or 5-tech or wherever it is that you want to play him along your odd front defensive line, kick him into the 3-tech on sort of passing downs. Really good first step. You mentioned the sack totals. I mean, the guy had 39 pressures in 2025, 79 total pressures throughout his career. Again, the level of competition is the question. Maybe the anchor strength as a run defender could be a question for Caleb Proctor. But when you get in the middle rounds like that, you find a gap shooter like that. Big fan of Caleb Proctor. I think you made a good pick there. My next pick is going to be Chris McClellan out of Missouri. 6'4", 313 pounds. He's got 11-inch hands, 34-inch arm length. I like the size profile here with Chris McClellan. I like the alignment versatility because I think he could play a little bit of nose tackle. He could play a little bit of like the 5-tech or the 4-eye as well. He had a really good week in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He had 6 sacks in 2025, 38 pressures, 8 sacks, and 46 run stops in total over the past 2 seasons in the SEC at Missouri. Only a 7.9% missed tackle rate. He is stout against the run, solid first step quickness. He's a good gap shooter for his size, physical at the point of attack. He can shed and deconstruct blocks, right? He's a good bull rusher and shows some finesse as a pass rusher. So I think Chris McClellan could be one of the bigger steals in this draft. Maybe some Tim Settle vibes to Chris McClellan here, and a guy you could possibly get in the middle rounds of the draft. So I'm going Chris McClellan with my pick here.
I like that pick. I especially liked what you said about the size profile. To me, that's really intriguing about a guy like Chris McClellan, and that's a guy that kind of segues into my next pick as well with the size profile, and that's Devin Eastern from Minnesota. Yes. I like him 6'6", 320. Weighed in at the combine at 6'5", 315. So the listed weights and the combine weights pretty close, right? And you don't usually see that very often. They usually kind of exaggerate the the school sites usually kind of exaggerate some of the size profile, but 6'5", 315 at the combine, 10-inch hands, 34-inch arms. If you read Lance Zierlein's scouting report on Eastern, he suggests that his best football at the NFL level could be as an odd front end, which is exactly a position the Bills could use another body here. So, especially at that size, man, he could be a real asset for the Bills there. He is a guy that's kind of been all over the place rankings wise. He's been anywhere, from just around the top 150 in some rankings all the way out to outside the 200. But it's hard for me to ignore the size profile of a guy like Devin Eastern from Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, 6'5", 315, 34-inch arms. That's a guy that's prototypical, I think, 5-tech size, but he also can nose tackle flex because he's a tough run stuffer. So this is a guy who he can be a gap shooter. He can stuff the run. Like, this is a guy I think could be a real steal for a team, especially a team that runs an odd front in the middle to late rounds of the draft. Big fan of Devin Eastern. All right, let's see here. I don't know if I want to do this to you or not, but I'm going to take your guy or a guy from your school here, NC State. I'm going to go with Brandon Cleveland with my next pick. Now, average measurables for Brandon Cleveland: 6'3", 307 pounds, 32-inch arms, 9-inch hands. Not really a pass rush threat, but he's one of the better pure run defenders, I think, in this draft class. He just doesn't really get moved. So he's another guy who is maybe a 2-down player, right? So I wouldn't take him until the 5th, 6th, or 7th round, but he's a guy who's going to make the other guys around him better. So I'm going with Brandon Cleveland. And I think I have a type, and I think my list compared to what maybe the Bills list is going to look like, maybe won't age well. Capehart, Cleveland. I'm just a big fan of these guys who can just stop the run. Call me old fashioned, but I want a guy who can maybe stop the run a little bit. But again, and because Noah Sheldon mentions David Gusta. David Gusta was is a 3-tech that was playing nose tackle at Kentucky last year. Like, probably better as a 3-tech in an even man front. But I feel like these are probably the types the Buffalo Bills are looking at, like Grayson Halton. Maybe one of us is going to mention Landon Robinson out of Navy at some point, maybe in the next 2 picks here. These gap shooting types. Maybe that's kind of what the Buffalo Bills are looking for. I would love for them to take some size and some beef, though. And even though Brandon Cleveland doesn't check the size beef box, I certainly he profiles as someone who's going to have a decent career in the National Football League, just stopping the run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next pick for me is kind of between two, I would say, somewhat similar players. But I'm going to go with, who am I going to go with? Which one should I go with? Let's see. I'll go with Rayshawn Benny from Michigan. 6'3", 298, 33, almost 34-inch arms. He's got pretty good size and length for a potential 3-4 defensive end. Experience with playing with his hand in the dirt there. Rotational profile, certainly, but could climb in a starter conversation with a bit more production. Obviously played with Derek Moore on that Michigan defensive line. I think he could be a rotational 3-4 type of end. And he could even rotate in to play some nose tackle at times, where he played at Michigan, a decent run defender as well. And look, I think that another guy where you're going to see a lot of varying opinions, but I think Rayshawn Benny as just like a solid prospect that can come in and just be sort of a bottom of the roster guy, like a Zion Logue type, like an Eli Anku type. I think you could do worse than Rayshawn Benny.
I got a couple of choices here for my last pick. So many so that, like, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Okay. I'm going to let you go again.
Oh, okay.
Because I kind of want you to maybe take one of these off the board for me, so I don't feel bad not picking one of these guys. Like, I want you to make the decision for me. So I'm gonna let you go again and make your last pick here, and just go 2 in a row.
Okay, wasn't expecting that, but
I'm gonna throw you a curveball here.
Yeah, I mean, all right.
I can go again if you want me to go again.
You know what? I'll go James Thompson Jr. then with my last
There we
pick.
go.
Why
Look at
not?
that.
I'll go with James Thompson Jr.
Mhm.
Look, Illinois PFF lists Thompson Jr. as 6'6", 310. He had the best tackling grade of all players, interior defensive linemen in the class with at least 300 snaps. He's an older prospect. He had 5 years at Wisconsin before spending his 2025 at Illinois. But from a size profile standpoint, I like James Thompson Jr. and I like that Illinois defense. I think that maybe age is going to be a concern for some teams, but I've made this comment before about the Bills is like, if you can bring in a guy that you think can contribute and find a role on the 53, I don't think age is as much of a factor for a team like the Bills as if you are like a Raiders, for example, and you're trying to build really from the ground up with a lot of young prospects. I think an older type of prospect like James Thompson Jr. will be fine for what the Bills are looking for. And so, yeah, I was leaning either him or Albert Regis, and I went with James Thompson Jr.
You didn't make my job any easier here. Just a number of guys who I'm not going to mention that I thought this exercise 20 guys. We'll be safe. We'll be safe. But no, we're not safe. I feel like there are some guys that we're disrespecting here. Noah Sheldon comes in and says thoughts on Brian Easton or Cameron Ball. I have them as priority free agents. They're not on my list of like draftable guys. But I'm sure some people might have some different opinions. We're not listing. I think Tyler Oniendum out of Texas A&M is a cool, fun little. He's probably a even front 3 tech or sort of a 4-eye prospect. I like him. Not going to mention him. Nick Barrett is a fun run stuffer, 1-2 down sort of nose tackle. I know Randy Hardman is not going to be happy with us not taking the South Carolina guy. I'm going to pass on him. Landon Robinson, I'm going to pass on him as well. Out of Navy, feel bad about that. Albert Regis, another guy at Texas A&M, feel bad about passing on him. David Gusta, Gary Smith III, feel bad passing on them. But with my final pick, I'm going with a guy that blew up his pro day and has become sort of a darling in the draft community. And a couple of these draft nicks that I trust are saying this guy's flashing some potentials as a late round steal. I'm going with Jordan Vandenberg out of Georgia Tech. Now, if you look at Jordan Vandenberg, I have to pull it up here. I got his RAS. This is a guy who is 6'3", 310 pounds. He did 35 reps on the bench. He's got 32-inch arms, 9-inch hands. So, right? But he had a 38+ inch vertical. He had a elite broad. He had a 4.84 40-yard dash, a 2.75 split. He did the shuttle and graded out as elite in that as well. This is the second most athletic defensive tackle of all time, as measured by RAS. And he was deployed as a nose tackle at Georgia Tech, but people feel like they left a little bit of meat on the bone playing him strictly at nose tackle, and he could easily play defensive end in an odd front scheme. Incredibly stout at the point of attack, flashes some range, right? The lack of production because he's playing pure nose tackle at Georgia Tech kind of snubbed him from the combine. He took a high number of snaps at 1 tech, 0 tech, but he could maybe, right, contribute on the edge. So I'm going to go with a very high ceiling pick here. At 310 pounds, Jordan Vandenberg's 419 shuttle was faster than Garrett Williams, Alec Pierce, Khalil Shakir, Michael Wilson, Denzel Boston, and Jeremy Bernard, who all weigh 100 pounds, 100 pounds less or more than Jordan Vandenberg. So I'm going with the ceiling here with my last pick in Jordan Vandenberg.
Yeah, I like it. And I just realized I picked 11 guys. So,
did you? I have Thompson, Eastern, Proctor, Harris, Keenan, Woods, Falk, Corleone, Banks, McDonald.
Hold on.
Who did I miss?
Maybe
I think you only got 10. I've been writing it down.
All right, let me see. Let me run through my. You missed Rayshon Benny. I picked him.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
So,
all right, well, you get 11.
Yeah.
You get 11. Well, James Thompson Jr. is your honorable mention there.
Yeah. James Thompson, honorable mention. That's fine. Yeah.
All right. So, up next now, we're going to shift from defensive tackles to edge rusher. So, as we start to talk about edge rusher, we're going to do the same concept. We're going to go back and forth, right? 10 times. So by the time we're done, we'll have talked about 20 prospects, which is going to stink because I think there are more than 20 quality edge rushers in this draft class. But I think we can eliminate 2 right off the top. I think we can both agree that Reuben Beane Jr., David Bailey, probably not in the cards for the Buffalo Bills. So
not in the cards.
Just those 2 are not going to be talked about here as we go through and we list our top 10s or create our top 10 list based on what the other person is doing. You went first last time.
Yep.
I get to go first this time, and I may or may not have planned that for a reason, because there's a player that I needed to have on my list, Dave. I couldn't let you take him. He's going to be my no matter what edge rusher when we get to the no matter what show. And that is Malachi Lawrence out of the University of Central Florida. I would take him in a heartbeat at pick number 26. I would take him over Cassius Howell. I would take him over R. Mason Thomas. This is a guy who's 6'4", 253 pounds. He's got 33-inch arms, 9-inch hands. He ran a 4.5, 240, 95th percentile. He had a 96th percentile vert, a 97th percentile broad. He had a pass rush win rate in his final season at UCF in the Big 12 of 19.2%. He's had 40 pressures, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles in 2025. He had a 36% win rate on true pass rush sets, which I think is really good. When you know the quarterback's throwing the ball, this is a guy who's going to get to the quarterback. He was really impressive at the Shrine Week and at the Combine. He showed really good movement skills. He showed really good bend in those Combine drills. He is one of 4 edge rushers since 2015 with a RAS greater than 9.89 and a sack rate higher than 4%. Joining him in that group, if you manipulate the data this way, Montez Sweat, TJ Watt, and Myles Garrett. So I think that's pretty good company there. Super long arms, quick off the snap. He's got a deep pass rush arsenal, one of the bigger bags in this draft. He's got quick hands. He's got proven pass rush production, high motor, great closing speed. So to me, if you have those sort of power players in Bradley Chubb and Gregory Rousseau, and you can add that quick off the snap presence and Malachi Lawrence to that room as well, rushing from the edge, I think that would be a huge get for the Buffalo Bills at pick 26.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was on my short list for sure. I had him highlighted in green, which are like the top of the top type of guys that I like. Man, I feel like I have to do this just because I have to. I'll say Cassius Howell then for my pick. Last 2 years at Texas A&M before the 3 prior to that at Bowling Green, 27 career sacks, 35.5 career tackles for loss in over 55 games played. He had the 8th best pass rush grade of all edge and linebackers in the class with at least 500 snaps. Capped off his college career last year with 11.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss in 2025. 6'2.5", 253. You do worry a little bit about the length, though, here. Only 30-inch arms, only 74-inch wingspan, 9.25-inch hands. So the size and overall length is a bit of a concern. Didn't test athletically off the charts. He was still a solid 8.12 RAS, but I think just being in that program at Texas A&M, the production was there for him. I think as a stand-up outside linebacking, rushing type player in the Bills defense, he would be a really good fit, obviously, if Beane and Bailey are not on the board. So I'll take Howell then with my pick.
Obviously, there are issues here, right? This is a guy who historically long, like short arms, like 0 percentile arm length at less than 31 inches, 30 inches. He's going to have issues disengaging from blocks in the pros. He's going to have issues defending the run in the pros. He was not a great run defender in college. He was a 5th-year senior. But at the end of the day, Joe Brady talked about this in his press conference. He's like, stop looking at players' flaws and start looking at the things that they do well, and the things that they do well that you could isolate, and you can use those things to your advantage. And when you think about Cassius Howell that way, this is a guy who had a 28.6% win rate on true pass rush sets, had 11.5 sacks in 2025 at Texas A&M. He's got a variety of pass rush moves. He's got a bend and arc around the edge that nobody in this draft class can replicate. He's a high energy player. He's got the ability to drop into coverage. He was a unanimous All-American. He was SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And you're getting him at pick 26 because of all those other flaws that we mentioned, right? So when it's talking about finding star players in the aggregate, finding difference makers in the aggregate, because Brandon Beane likes to say all the time that we're not drafting high enough to get those guys, right? This is how you find those guys, by looking past the flaws and taking a really dang good football player. And that's what Cassius Howell is. He's a really dang good guy to rush a passer.
Yes.
All right. I am up next. I am going to go R. Mason Thomas. Big fan of R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Didn't test so well at the combine. There are concerns about his size, 6'2", 241, 78-inch wingspan, 31-inch arms, 8-inch hands. So there are some issues there. I think he cleaned up a lot of that at his pro day. He's had some injuries, ankle injuries, quad injuries. It's not going to help you really stopping the run. Has a pretty high missed tackle rate, but he brought it down in 2025. But again, it's isolating their strength. And when you look at most of the edge rushers in this class, when you isolate their strength is getting to the quarterback. And I think R. Mason Thomas does that as good as anybody in this class. He had a pass rush win rate in his final season of 20.3, 17 career sacks and 80 career pressures. He had a 35.1% win rate on true pass rush sets. It's insane. He's been a first and second team all SEC player. His father was an edge at Florida, so he's got the bloodlines. Elite first step quickness, good closing speed, good bend around the edge, and good change of direction ability. If you're looking for somebody to get to the quarterback, and the comp that everyone wants to throw out there is like a Nick Bonito. I don't know if he's as athletic as Nick Bonito, but he does wear that Oklahoma uniform like Bonito did. R. Mason Thomas, I think, is another guy who can just go get the quarterback for you.
I like that. I like R. Mason Thomas. He's on our show graphic for tonight as the edge representative there. Good pick there. I'm going to go next with a guy I think that is a little bit polarizing, probably because of when he broke out, and that's Akeem Mesidor from Miami. Obviously had the late breakout in 2025. You wonder maybe he's already at his ceiling, but he did have the 6th best pass rushing grade of all edges and linebackers in the class. There were at least 500 snaps, 12.5 sacks, and 17.5 tackles for loss last year. 3rd in the class of all edge players with 50 quarterback hurries, and also the 3rd best run defense grade of all edge in the class with at least 300 snaps. And so, yes, I know age is a concern, but at 6'3", 260, 10-inch hands, almost 33-inch arms, and almost a 79-inch wingspan, he does have the length, even at only 6'3", 259, that you're not getting from Cassius Howell, and clearly proved that he could rush the passer last year. So give me Akeem Mesidor with my next pick.
Yeah, 20.8 pass rush win rate in his final season, 35.8% pass rush win rate in true pass rush sets, 62 pressures in 2025. It's a guy who can line up inside or outside on an even front. So I don't know. You're probably just going to be like a power edge, kind of like in the same mold as a Bradley Chubb or a Gregory Rousseau in this odd man front. But I mean, this guy is he's a pass rusher, man. He's got a plan. He's determined in pursuit. He's just a really, really good pass rusher. But you mentioned it. He turns 25 in August, or excuse me, in April. He's almost 25 now. Length is a little bit of an issue, not as big of an issue as it was with R. Mason Thomas. He's had some injuries, late career breakout. These are all things you want to worry about with a prospect. But somebody made an analogy earlier. They said drafting Akeem Mesidor is like adding a free agent addition almost because of his age. It's not even like adding a draft pick. It's like adding a free agent. And there is, I think, some merit to that, right? Because he's a little bit more seasoned than some of these other guys as well. So Akeem Mesidor would immediately impact your football team, right? The long-term impact, I don't know, but immediately he would certainly have an impact on your football team. Up next, I'm going to take a guy I think is a really good edge rusher. I question maybe his fit with the Bills, but I think this is a guy who's a top 40 talent in this draft, and that is Zion Young out of Missouri. 6'6", 262 pounds, 33-inch arms. Pass rush win rate in his final season of 17.2%, 25.6% win rate in true pass rush sets. But this is a guy with limited career sack production. He did have 6.5 in 2025, but this is not a guy who typically got to the quarterback. But when you look at Zion Young and you know what his trait is that some of these other edge rushers, these bendier edge rushers, or these speedier, sort of undersized edge rushers don't have, the ability to set the edge and stop the run like a Zion Young does. Violent, heavy hands, ideal size for an edge. He's got alignment versatility, a 9.3% run stop rate in 2025, the firm anchor, bull rush power, right? Like he's of a different pedigree than some of these other guys that we have been talking about. In Zion Young, I almost feel like this is a 4-3 edge. And if he is an odd man front guy, you have Rousseau, you have Chubb. Do you want a third guy like that, or do you want a different type of player in the room? That's my concern with Zion Young, but he's a darn good football player. So I have him third on my list here.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. I'm gonna go with I don't know if it's considered maybe an off the wall type of pick, but I'm going Gabe Yakis with my next pick.
There
Illinois.
we go.
35.5 career tackles for loss, 27 career sacks, which included 13.5 tackles for loss and 11 sacks in 2025. All 4 years at Illinois, was a team captain, 10th best pass rush grade of all edge in the class. Versatile player, can play in a 2-point, can play in a 3-point stance. Physical and violent player, which are the traits the Bills really have been kind of sorely lacking, I would say, in the era of the McDermott defense, right? We've had a lot of fundamentals type guys, like do your 111th. Like, yes, we haven't really had a lot of, I'll say it, we really haven't had a lot of swagger on the defense. And to me, yes, that's like a vibe. That's like more of a vibe check thing. But man, Yakis backs it up with production on the field. So for me, I'm going with Yakis, 6'4", 260, 10-inch hands, 33-inch arms. He's got pretty good length as a guy that can rush with his hand in the dirt or standing up. So give me Yakis.
I'm going to go. I love Gabe Yakis, by the way. I think he's a really good player. I'm going to go a little off the reservation with my next pick. I'm leaving my consensus board. I'm moving down because I want to make sure I get this player on my list. I'm going to go with Jayshon Barham out of the University of Michigan. Now, this is a guy who played a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of edge rusher at Michigan. I think whoever moved him to edge made him a ton of money because Jayshon Barham is not a linebacker. He does not take good pursuit angles. He's got slow reaction speed. He's got coverage issues. Not a linebacker, which means he's going to need some more development as a pass rusher. He is a little undersized as a pass rusher, 6'3", 240 pounds, but 34-inch arm length, 10-inch hands. So he's got big mitts, 81st percentile 40, 74th percentile 10-yard split, right? This is a really good athlete here, 83rd percentile broad jump. For his career, Jayshon Barham, 193 tackles, 23 tackles for losses, 12 sacks, 17 pass breakups, and an interception. He's got 89 pressures in under 500 edge snaps. He's a high effort player. He's got a little bit of versatility, even though I think he's edge rusher only. He's physical against the run. He's got good bend when he rushes off the edge, and he's got power in his hands to sort of shed blocks. I think he's a good player to sort of complement what you have in Chubb and Rousseau. Like he's almost like a Sam linebacker, maybe, because he can play coverage a little bit. Kind of what everyone envisions Michael Hoyt doing, but I have concerns about whether Michael Hoyt can do that in 2026 because he's coming back from that Achilles. So Jayshon Barham is not Dorian Williams. Like he's got a bigger size profile, I think, than Dorian Williams. So to me, Jayshon Barham, maybe he's a little Dorian Williams, but I like him more as a Sam linebacker, whereas Dorian Williams is probably more so a stack linebacker.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100% on that assessment. I'm going with your most hated school next, apparently, and I'm gonna take TJ Parker here as my fourth player. I think that's a pretty good value here as we get towards the middle of our snake draft here. Look, again, probably gonna have a little bit of a ceiling that he's hit already. A lot of people think his 2024 was better than his 2025 once he started getting more attention defensively, but he is a worker, and I think there is some nice floor here, I would say, with TJ Parker. Had the 18th best defensive grade of all edge in the class, 41.5 career tackles for loss, and 21.5 sacks in only 3 seasons at Clemson. So there's still, I think, a little meat on the bone for TJ Parker to improve. I think, again, he could be a stand-up edge outside linebacker in this Bills 3-4 scheme. And, he's got some decent length, 6'3.5", 263, 33 and 1/8 arms, almost 80-inch wingspan. And I think that, with the right coaching, I think he could be a nice outside linebacker prospect, maybe with like a limited ceiling, but I think a pretty high floor for TJ Parker.
Yeah, TJ Parker, that's another one where I'm just kind of indifferent on. Like, I understand the appeal. But when you look at the size profile, you look at the fact that, again, these are kind of the players that Brandon Beane likes, where it's like their sophomore year was better than their senior year, right? Like that's the kind of guy. Like, it seems like if you were looking at a mock draft the day after the 2024, or excuse me, the 2025 NFL draft for 2026, TJ Parker is probably in your top 15. I just don't know if I feel that way about this player. Obviously, he had 11 sacks in 2024, but you look at his senior year, down to 5 sacks. He had a pass rush win rate of 15.5%, which is below the threshold of an average first round edge rusher since 2015 at 17.3%. He reclaimed his stock big time. Of course, at the Senior Bowl, he had a really good Senior Bowl week. Athletically, he's all there. I understand all of that. But the one thing that really scares me away from TJ Parker is 33% of TJ Parker's career sacks came in 2 games, against Pittsburgh in 2024 and South Carolina in 2025.
Fair.
And in 2024, Pitt had a 50.2 team pass block grade from PFF, not the end all be all of the world. I understand that. They were 125th out of 134 teams in FBS. And then South Carolina had a 59.1 team pass block grade, 102nd out of 136. This is a guy who feasts on bad competition and kind of goes invisible against big time competition, in my opinion. So I'm not as high on TJ Parker as others, but again, I understand the appeal. I wouldn't be happy if the Bills took him at pick 26, but I wouldn't be throwing my remote through the television either. Because like I said, I do understand the appeal in a guy like TJ Parker. So certainly, like, as we go through the list here, hard to argue any of these other players are better than him. I'm going to go back to Michigan with my next pick here, and I'm going to go Derek Moore, 6'4", 255 pounds. Kind of gives me some Derek Hall vibes, Super Bowl winner, Derek Hall there. Pass rush win rate in his final season of 19.8%. He had 10 sacks and 10.5 tackles for loss in 2025. His name came up a lot when we talk about Senior Bowl winners and winners of the Senior Bowl. I think he's got a really good electric get off. He uses his hands violently. He's a true power player. Doesn't have the biggest pass rush bag. I get that. His run defense and his setting the edge leaves a lot to be desired. I get that as well. But when it comes to, again, just looking for traits, looking for them to do one thing, at pick 91, if a guy like Derek Moore is sitting on the board, I think he's a really good complement to what we already have in Bradley Chubb and Gregory Rousseau.
I'm a big fan of Derek Moore. All 4 seasons at Michigan, had a good pass rushing grade there as well. 10 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss last year. It feels like we talk about this type of player from Michigan every single year. Is he a sandbacker? Is he an edge? Is he an edge rusher type linebacker? Don't know. But I think Derek Moore gives you options at multiple linebacker positions, I think, in this Bills edge kind of discussion. So I like Derek Moore a lot. That was a nice pick. I'm going to go next with Mikhail Kamara from Indiana, national champion, 49 hurries in 2025, 4th most of all edge in the class. And he was playing through some injuries as well last year. You look at his 2024, the guy had 10 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. And then his production kind of dipped a little bit in 2025. But I do think a lot of that was due to injury. I think that a guy like Kamara with his pedigree, with his experience. Obviously, he spent his last 2 years at Indiana, his first 2 years at JMU, so he kind of earned his way up into that program. That last year he was at JMU before he transferred, 18 and a half tackles for loss in 2023 for Kamara. And I think like he's a guy that you want. He's going to get back and he's going to get into the backfield, help you in run defense as much as he's going to help you with rushing the passer. And at 6'1", 262, he does have a little bit more size than some of these other guys we're talking about. So I think if he's clear on the injuries, obviously he didn't do a lot of the testing at the combine. He just got his measurements. So I like Kamara. I think that he would be a nice fit for the Bills.
Yeah, that's a good fit for the Bills as well. I'm going to go back to the Big Ten here. And I'm going to go Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State here.
He was on my list, yeah.
With my 7th pick. 6'6", 256. So good size profile there. 33-inch arms, 10-inch hands. He was a big combine winner. 85th percentile 40, 95th percentile vert, 98th percentile broad, 93rd percentile 3-cone. But when you look at him too, like despite some of the struggles from Penn State, at least this past season, he has been a consistent performer for the Nittany Lions. In 2024, 45 pressures, 8.5 sacks. 2025, 50 pressures, 8.5 sacks. 24.2% win rate on true pass rush sets in 2025. That's more than adequate. Really good combine, really good Senior Bowl. Violent player, powerful hands. I think he's got a good spin move in his arsenal. Some of the things, he's not the bendiest guy in the world. Does have a high center of gravity, can be a little high cut. 19.4% career missed tackle rate, 5.4% stop rate. It's not the greatest run defender in the world, but again, you're looking for traits. You're looking for things you can isolate. I think there's a ton of things you can isolate with Danny Dennis Sutton.
I love Danny Dennis Sutton. I think that, yeah, he's a guy I think that at some point you may even say, like, depending on how he kind of develops, he could end up dropping into being a 3-4 end as well. I think there's a lot of options with him. But that size is super appealing, like Danny Dennis Sutton. Next pick for me, I'm kind of between two guys. Man, you know what? I'm gonna go Romello Height here from Texas Tech. 6'3", 239. So he's a little lighter than some of these other guys, but good. You got good height and length there. 32-inch arms. Helps Texas Tech's 3rd ranked defense in college football. Could be a stand-up edge rusher in the Bills 3-4. Top 5 in both overall defense and pass rush grade in 2025. 42 quarterback hurries, was the 6th most of all edge in the class. He's had a really interesting path. Stops at Auburn, USC, Georgia Tech, and Texas Tech. And finally, his 2025 breakout year with 11.5 tackles for loss and 10 sacks. But for a guy that's been all around, I think that can serve him in a positive way as he goes into the NFL. Change of scenery, new environment, things like that are not going to phase this guy. Pretty good athlete, just under a 9 RAS as well. Yeah. So give me Romello Height with my next pick here.
Probably not an every down player, but a really good niche player, Romello Height. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. 62 pressures, 10 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles in 2025. The 4th highest pressure rate in college football, the 3rd fastest average time to pressure in FBS with 2.9. I understand there was a lot of talent around him, but I mean, this is a guy who's very explosive, who has really good pursuit and closing speed, and he's a really good player. The size is an issue with a really thin frame. So again, probably a niche player, but man, I like that pick in Romello Height for you there. I think he's a good complement to Chubb and Rousseau. So many good edge rushers to choose from. Noah Sheldon said Anthony Lucas from USC. He wouldn't be on my list. I think he's a more looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane type of player. I have him as a priority UDFA, though, because he does have the size profile that you look for. George Gums Jr. Is another guy who has a size profile you look for. I have him 7th round grade. I have him lower than some of these other guys. Vincent Anthony, same thing. I have him a little bit lower than some of these other guys that I'm going to mention, but there are going to be some edge rushers that we disrespect tonight because we're limiting ourselves to 20. And maybe you do mention some of these guys here. But my next guy is going to be Kieron Crawford out of Auburn. 6'4", 253. Doesn't have the longest arms in the world at 32 inches, but when you look at Kieron Crawford, 43 pressures in 2025. Between 2024 and 2025, he had 69 pressures, 6 sacks, 33 stops, 27% win rate on true pass rush sets this past season. He looked really explosive and fluid in the combine drills. He's got good first step quickness, good pursuit speed. He's a high effort pass rusher. He's twitchy. I think he's, for his size, strong against the run and can take on doubles, but he does have a 24.4% missed tackle rate, and his arm length at 32 inches is a little bit of a concern. But this is a guy who again, it's unfair because I don't think Keldrick Falk is an edge rusher, but when you watch Auburn and you see Kieran Crawford on one side and Keldrick Falk on the other rushing the passer, Kieran Crawford looks like he has a plan, whereas Keldrick Falk relies very much just on his brute strength. So I am a big fan of Kieran Crawford out of Auburn. I think he could be a really nice pass. I don't want to say pass rush specialist because I think he's got more upside than that. I think he could eventually, not with the two guys in front of him, Bradley Chubb and Gregory Rousseau, but I think he could eventually be an every down player in the National Football League.
Yeah, and Crawford didn't start playing football until his senior year of high school as well. If you read Lance Zierlein's scouting report on NFL.com, they talk about NFL scout talking, NFC scout talking about Crawford, saying that he doesn't think he's reached his ceiling yet by any stretch. There's room to grow there as well for Crawford, and he did have some of the advanced metrics looked at him favorably last year. He was a top 20 pass rush grade of all edge rushers in the class. He had 9.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks last year. So it's nothing to scoff at. I like Crawford. Yeah. I think there's some ceiling for him, and I'm hoping there's some ceiling for my next pick as well, because the production in college wasn't exactly there. But when I turn on the games and I look at his length and I look at his ability to rush the passer, it does stand out to me, and that's Joshua Josephs from Tennessee. Only 9.5 career sacks, but man, this guy's wingspan is incredible. He has that ability, like Greg Rousseau does, to kind of just reach around the tackle that he's rushing against and just stick his hand out and get his hand on that quarterback's arm, get his hand on that ball. Top 10 pass rush grade of all edge in the class last year, even without the stack production, and has played stand-up edge for Tennessee. So he is suited to play that role. He's certainly going to be someone that you would count on to more rush the passer than you would be to play against any strength against the run. But he has a really good get off the line, really good burst. And you just wonder why that production never really followed for Josephs. But I don't know. I just can't. I can't ignore him, I guess is the way I'll put it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely needs to finish probably at a higher rate because he does have 81 career pressures at Tennessee, 34.3 win rate on true pass rush sets. Like you said, the sack numbers just don't match, but the 34-inch arms, times the snaps really well, high level athleticism, twitchy athlete. That's definitely a guy in the middle of rounds that you take a swing at. Like this is a guy who could go late day 2, early day 3, and could really be something as sort of a pass rusher in the National Football League, and got a little juice against the run as well. My 9th pick, so my second to last pick here, I'm going to go with someone who I hope catches Jim Leonhard's attention, being a Wisconsin guy, and that is Mason Rieger, who had a big week at the Shrine Bowl. He was the Shrine Bowl defensive MVP in the Shrine Bowl game. 3 sacks and a strip sack, one of those being a strip sack. He's got a 9.53 RAS score with a 40-inch vertical. It's a guy who's 6'5", 251 pounds, 32-inch arms, 10-inch hands. He ran a 4.78 40, 55th percentile, but explosive. 96th percentile vertical, 89th percentile broad jump. When I look at Mason Rieger, right, this is he reminds me very much of Nick Herbig, the outside linebacker from Wisconsin who went to the Pittsburgh Steelers in an odd man front and has had a lot of success as a situational player there. I think you could probably do a lot of the similar things with Mason Rieger in an odd man front if you are Jim Leonhard. This guy is determined. He's got determined effort and speed and pursuit. He's got a good arsenal of pass rush moves. I think he's really good with his hands. He's got big hands, big wingspan. He knows how to use it. I think he's quick off the snap. The thing with him is he's not going to anchor against the run. He's not some power rusher, some bull rusher or something like that. That's not how he wins. He's got a pretty high missed tackle rate, 24.5%. And quite honestly, you ask a ton of people, they're like, this is a double-digit sack guy if he could just take the quarterback down. He gets to the quarterback, but then just doesn't take them down. So if you can clean that up, a guy like Mason Rieger could really be a steal. But he did have surgery on his leg, missed the entire 2024 season. He is a sixth-year senior, turning 24 years old. So there's a reason why this is a middle-round pick that we're talking about here. But I think he is a middle-round pick that has some potential as a situational edge who can maybe play some special teams as well.
Like it. Big. I actually had noted, I had in my notes that he was a judge guy. I put that next to some guys in my notes. So I was like, going to stay away from him because I knew you were going to take him. And that's totally fine with me. I'm going small school-ish again with my next one. He's highlighted in green for me. MAC Defensive Player of the Year, Nadam Tucker from Western Michigan, 6'2", 247, a little bit shorter arms, just under 32 inches, but man, 1 year of insane production for this guy after transferring a kind of an odd journey. He played at Houston his first 3 years, didn't really play at all, then transferred to Western Michigan, had 21 tackles for loss and 14 and a half sacks last year. Second best pass rush grade of all edge in 2025 with at least 500 snaps, 41 hurries, seventh most in the class. If you want a pure pass rushing outside linebacker for your 3-4 scheme, Tucker is the guy that can fit in this role. He's not going to bring you really anything in terms of run defense, but if you want a guy who can rush the passer, he's your guy. He's not necessarily the best athlete. 4'7", 340, 163, 10-yard split, 33-inch vertical, 9'11 broad. But he can get to the quarterback when given the chance. You worry about that 1 year production at Western Michigan. What happened there in Houston those first couple of years? Never really got on the field. But when he got a chance to get on the field, he made the most of it and certainly got himself into a position where he should be drafted this year.
Yeah, big fan of Tucker here. Let me pull up my notes on him real quick because you mentioned it. I think the biggest concern with him is sort of the late breakout, right? He's going to be 26 years old in June. So it's a 26-year-old going up against that level of competition in the MAC. But at the same time,
he didn't get a chance to play really.
Yes, you're right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, but 14 and a half sacks, 21 tackles for losses, 61 pressures. Like, that's what you want to see. You want to see someone dominate that level of competition.
Yep.
And he's got a good foundation of rush moves, a good pursuit. So, like, that's the guy. Matt Miller just did a 7-round MAC and took him late for the Buffalo Bills. So,
nice.
When you're looking at taking a swing, that's the guy you take a swing at in the later rounds. My ninth pick here, I am going to go with a pick that has a little bit to do with defense and a little bit to do with special teams. And I am going back to, I'm actually not going back to Ohio State. I'm going back to the Big Ten here. Going with Caden Curry out of Ohio State with my next pick. 6'3", 257 pounds, 0 percentile arm again with the 30-inch arms. But you feel a lot better in the 5th, 6th, 7th round with a Caden Curry maybe when you have that 0 percentile arms. But this is a guy who is a team leader, has a nonstop motor, was a special team standout for years. He is physical and run support with an 8.6% stop rate in 2025. He was used in a variety of ways in that Matt Patricia defense. So he's extremely versatile. And then on top of all of that, in 2025, you saw a career high in sacks with 11, an 18.2% win rate on true pass rush sets. But before that, there's very minimal sack production, right? 4.5 sacks over the course of 3 years. So there's a reason why he's not going to go earlier on in the draft. But I think Caden Curry could be a niche situational pass rusher, a guy you could use in a variety of different ways on your defense. And then on top of that, I think he could be a really good special teams player for you. So give me Caden Curry with my 9th pick here.
Yeah, he was on my short list of guys left to pick. There's a lot of guys left to pick. I'm going to go with my last green, I'll call him green highlighted guy, which is a guy that I kind of single out on my list. And going to go with Isaiah Smith from SMU, 6'4", 248, a really nice 4-year career, all at SMU. 36 career TFL, 23 career sacks, really productive 2025 with 18 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks in 2025 to round out his career there at SMU. Really solid, just grading across the board for him, at least a 76.3 grade in all of the 4 main defensive grades from PFF: defense, run defense, tackle, and pass rush. He's certainly a fit as a stand-up edge rusher in the Bills 3-4, played a lot of 2-point stand-up outside linebacker on both the left and right side at SMU in 2025. Needs to probably work on a little bit of variety with his pass rush moves. But again, as a guy that you're taking later in the draft, a guy who has had production at the college level, played all 4 years at SMU, you can do worse than a guy like Isaiah Smith, who has got good length at 6'4", 248.
All right. With my last pick here, I'm going back to the MAC. And I'm going with a guy who did not get a combine invite, but blew up his pro day, and he's got the stats and the tape to back it up. Maybe we could be looking at the next Max Crosby here. I doubt it, right? I doubt it, but you're taking these swings later on in the draft. Michael Heldman out of Central Michigan, a 9.88 RAS score, and this is a guy who did all of the combine drills, although albeit at his pro day. Obviously, the size profile, 6'3", 268 pounds, 31, almost 32-inch arms, smaller hands. So the size profile isn't the greatest, but he had a great composite speed grade. He had a great composite agility grade. He had a great composite explosion grade. This is a guy who is a really good athlete in Michael Heldman, right? Massive pro day, legit high RAS guy. And it's not like a janky RAS because he skipped a bunch of things he's not good at. He did the whole gauntlet of drills. In 2025, he had 48 tackles, 16.5 for loss, and 10.5 sacks at Central Michigan, a 23.3% pass rush win rate. I got to watch him firsthand against my Buffalo Bulls. 4 tackles, 2 for loss, 2 sacks, 7 pressures, and 2 quarterback hits in that game. He was a late invite to the Shrine Bowl, and he made the most of it. He's got good burst, bend. He's got a legit motor off the edge. And then again, there's this account that I like to follow on Twitter. They like to cherry pick some stats. And this is a really fun little cherry picked stat here from Adam Carter, who's a really good follow on X, just to see some of the way he cherry picks some data. I get it, but it's just fun. But it is of the power of the group of 5 edge rushers since 2015, with a RAS greater than 9.4 and a win rate in true pass rush sets greater than 27.5, Central Michigan's edge Michael Heldman had a massive pro day. It should bump his stock way up because these are the 4 players that fit into that data set. A greater than 9.4 RAS, a greater than 27.5% pass rush win rate. Heldman, Marcus Davenport, Trey Hendrickson, and Max Crosby. Pretty good group to be in. I know it's cherry picking some stats, but a pretty good group to be in. So to me, Michael Heldman, why not? He's my 10th pick. I'm going with the upside here out of Central Michigan.
Love that. I'm going with my last pick. I'm going down my list a little bit, but I'm showing some love to the Shrine Bowl here with Keyshawn James Newby with my last pick from New Mexico. Really had gotten some praise from the coaching staff over the course of the Shrine Bowl week. He claims he met with over 80% of the NFL teams throughout that process at 6'2", 244. No combine for him, but 4 batted balls in 2025. 3rd best pass rush grade of all edge and linebackers in the class. 55 hurries was the 2nd most of all edge in this class in 2025. Only Ruben Beane Jr. had more quarterback hurries in 2025 than Keyshawn James Newby. Certainly could be a stand-up outside pass rushing linebacker in the Bills scheme. And I got to show some love at least once to a guy from the Shrine Bowl and Shrine practices, says we do like to give those guys their fair shake on this show. So give me with my last pick here, Keyshawn James Newby.
All right, that'll do it here for our edge rushers. Apologies to Quantavious Hutchins out of Boston College.
A lot of guys we didn't
to
say.
Tyreek Sapp out of Florida, George Gums Jr. out of Florida, Max Llewellyn out of Iowa, Jack Pyburn out of LSU, your guy Trey Moore out of Texas.
Yep, didn't mention him.
LJ Overton, Anthony Lucas, Wesley Williams, Aiden Hubbard.
My guy Sandstone from my NC State.
I really like Niall Kelly out of UCF. Like, there's a ton of direction. Logan Fano out of Utah, like Vincent Anthony Jr. out of Duke. There's a ton of
We didn't
edge
mention Randy's gonna be even more pissed at us, right? We didn't mention Brian Thomas Jr. from South Carolina.
Yeah, like just
So,
there's a ton of names that we could have picked, but we limited ourselves. It's crazy. Like I love the defensive depth in this draft. I
yeah,
really, really do. It's a much better, in my opinion, than the offensive depth in this draft. I think there are some really quality players in this draft. I think there are some really quality future UFL stars in this draft as we get into the later rounds. But yeah. There are some fun players that if they get into the right situation, I think could find themselves sticking around in the league, even towards the later end of the draft. So that'll just about do it for us. I thought I would save us time by moving to this format. It did not save us any time. I think the show might be longer than last week's show, but we got to get all these position groups in.
Well, we did two position groups as well, right?
And we got to get some more position groups in. I think next week we are doing, let me check my show notes here. Next week we're doing wide receivers, and we got to mix in some offensive line. Maybe we only do 5 offensive linemen. I don't know. And then it's stacking our board. It's our no matter what list. And we're there, man. We're at the draft. So really looking forward to the next couple of weeks. We'll get out the details of all of our live draft coverage as we get closer to the draft. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. And Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here this evening?
No, it was good to do these groups together. Big needs, I think, for the Bills in this class. That's why we focus so much on defense so far in these last few shows. But yeah, next week we'll turn our attention a little bit to the offense. And yes, I'm glad you mentioned the live coverage. I know we will be doing the live coverage for round 1 air raid hour. As tradition, we'll host night 1, TBD on the rest, but we'll get out some promotional information to all of you guys once we know the schedule coming up.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. As always, really appreciate it if you would like this video, you would subscribe to the Cover One channel, you would share by clicking that share button and either texting or emailing or sharing on social media the link to this show to anyone you think would want to a little bit more information on some of the defensive prospects in this draft. And then, of course, once the show is done being live, leave us a comment. Who do we underrate? Who do we overrate? Who do we not mention? What do you think we were wrong about? What do you think we're right about? Like all those various different things. If you leave that comment, we get back to them over the course of the week, and it helps us with the algorithm as well. We don't like to do the clickbaity headlines. Our headline this week is Buffalo Bills defensive line makeover, NFL draft prospects, and more. Look at that. That's a ChatGPT headline if I've ever seen one.
No, it wasn't.
That was all you?
Yeah.
Look at you go, man. The more we use ChatGPT, the more we turn into robots, I think. Because that's a great title, dude. Like I could have sworn you copied that off ChatGPT. Look at you go.
That was all me. I don't like to use it for titles. I use it for other things.
I use it for all the titles when you're not here, man.
I mean, maybe I should to get SEO going, but like the last two titles I tried to make it a little more catchy. So we'll see.
Awesome. RJ Melville comes in and says, awesome show as always. I think this will be the 6th draft I have followed with you guys. Crazy how time flies. Yeah, we've been doing this since our Fanatics days. So really appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!